Those desirous of meeting me in Bahrain should come on the 24th of May, the Friday. We decided to do an event there because we had covered all Gulf countries and missed out only on Bahrain. Even during my long stay in Dammam, I had never made it across the causeway to Bahrain. So we decided that we'll visit Bahrain. I hope to see you in Bahrain on the 24th of May, the Friday. If you'd like to meet me, kindly message us to the WhatsApp number given below or drop a mail to the email ID given below. Once again, I thank you for your support.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. Before I get into talking about Japan and the Japanese yen, I wanted to hit upon a few things. One is Tesla and what's happening in Tesla. It's of great interest to people who own the Tesla shares, of course, but the wider market, people like us who are not owners of Tesla shares, who aspired to buy Tesla shares. Is it a time to buy? Is the question which is being asked. Is it a correction which we've been waiting for? Because the quarterly profits have fallen, and to save $1 billion, Elon Musk is doing some layoffs and is saying it's necessary. They've been discounting the cars, they've been discounting their software. Now they're looking at making economic or an affordable economy vehicle, and the whole India plan is thrown into limbo. There's a whole bunch of churning happening in Tesla, and that is because of all the pressures they're feeling from the other electric car manufacturers. Tesla for a long time was sitting in a moat, sitting by itself, very pretty, and Elon Musk was the wizard of Tesla, and everyone thought everything he touches turns to gold. But funny enough, as soon as competition started closing in on him, and the pressures of high interest rates has been pushing inflation and pushing other things for against Tesla, it seems to be he's under enormous pressure. The funny thing is that the same Elon Musk is the one who's been asking shareholders and investors to approve that crazy salary package which he's been asking for. So I don't know. Tesla, I would say, if you are looking at Tesla, it's in your radar, I would say, please wait. We still have to get a lot more clarity, not only within Tesla, but in the wider market, what is happening. And you will understand more of that in the second half of the video when I'm talking about what is happening in Japan and with the Japanese yen. In the same breath, you can also see what is happening in terms of geopolitical tension, how it has a great impact on a company and its earnings. We have seen Apple sales fall off the cliff because of what's happening between China, Huawei, and the US. That geopolitical tension, which I was talking about, has created a strong pushback by China on Apple, and Apple sales have fallen off the cliff. And this has put Apple in a quandary, a quagmire. And the Vision Pro, which I spoke about a couple of videos ago, kind of shows you the problem Apple is having. And they're pegging all of their hopes on the new improved chip, which they're going to be launching. And they're trying to build some kind of momentum, Apple, in the coming new iPhone 16 launch. I really don't expect anything much in the iPhone 16 in terms of technology or upgradation. And even the software, I don't know. It's just going to be a small improvement from 15 to 16. I think 17 is going to be the one, a more monumental shift. We'll have to wait and watch. Maybe I'm wrong. Next thing which I wanted to hit upon was what's happening domestically in terms of Tata Consumer Products. Tata Consumer Products, their net profits are down. They've declared some dividend. This also nicely ties in with what's happening domestically in India, the K-shaped recovery we're talking about, and how there is very dampened consumer spirits in the second lower half of the Indian consumer tire. Of course, the upper half are doing very well. There's no doubt about that. But the consumers in the middle class and lower middle class seem to be still struggling. And even in rural area, they seem to be struggling. And this is more proof of this. The last thing which I wanted to hit on before I jump into Japan was about the volatility index in India. VIX has always been a gauge which has been used in India to show you market sentiment. If the VIX gauge, volatility index gauge, is very high, that means there's a lot of fear in the market, fear in the investors. And that gauge usually tells you, as they say, blood on the streets is about to happen because there might be some panic selling that's around the corner. The other side, the flip of it, if it is very low, which is what's happened now, it has reached, I would say, a record low, the VIX. It is proof that the Indian consumers are greedy and they believe that things are going to go up and up and up, which is also there in some of the crazy eye-watering evaluations we're seeing in some of these companies. And most of it seems to be on the fact, banked on the results of the general elections. It seems to be on the fact that most investors, domestic and foreign, feel that BJP or the current government will have a next term, a third term on the trot, and they'll get a larger majority or an equal majority, is what seems to be fueling this sentiment, is what analysts are saying. Anyway, this is what broadly I wanted to hit on before I get into the Japanese yen. and the problem which is happening in Japan, and talking a little bit more about the origins of those problems and what to expect as an investor. I want to talk about what's happening with the yen, the Japanese yen, and the news related to that. Basic premise of this video is going to be that, is having a weak currency a good thing? We've always been told that, if you are in a country which is into exporting, having a weak currency is good, because if you're exporting, your exports become cheaper and cheaper because your input cost, labor cost, everything is lower, and your taxes are lower in the country of origin, and that way your exports become cheaper, and it's a good thing to have. So we've always thought that, that's why Anand says even the rupee becomes weaker. Look at companies which are earning in dollars because their revenues tend to go up. So this one case in point when we're talking about the yen becoming weaker. This is the initial enthusiasm shown by investors in Japan, that as the yen was weak and the Japanese central bank had changed its course and they're seeing inflation warming in the market, they said, okay, it's time to move out of the zero negative interest rates and move slowly toward positive interest rates. And of course, the biggest bolster was, after a long time, seeing wage increase in Japan, saying this is going to foster a new boom in Japan. So investors flocked to the Japanese market and pushed the Japanese stock market out of the doldrums and broke the old record. And everyone's been talking about the positivity of it. But then what happened was things got a little more complicated. And how did it get complicated? Well, this is where global economy and global currencies, how they're interrelated, is important to understand. There is a currency disparity between interest rates in the US and in Japan. US is at a very high interest rate, where Japanese interest rates are very low. So this has a big problem for the Japanese yen, because it makes the Japanese yen weaker compared to the US dollar. The simple logic being, to explain it in a layman's term, if you had money in Japan and you had to invest, let's say, you would be rather investing in US securities, because US securities will be offering much more attractive interest rate compared to Japanese securities. So you will tend to look at US securities as your first choice of investment. That means there is capital flight from Japan towards the US, which is not a good thing right now for Japan, because they would want to attract more Japanese people to invest in Japan and keep their money in Japan and look at opportunities within Japan, which is right now very difficult to do because of the attractiveness of the American interest rates. And everyone was expecting this not to be a long-term problem, and that will be short-lived, because they were talking about in January that this year alone, the Fed will be having at least 3 rate steps interest rate decrease, and that disparity would become small and negligible. And Japanese will also be raising their rates. So the gap will shorten, and looking in long-term growth, people will be rather staying in Japan. Unfortunately, that seems to be not the case. Like I said in the previous video, inflation in the US has been very sticky, and it's been ticking up slightly. And Fed, instead of even holding the rates, are now maybe even looking at giving another further rate rise. And this year it looks like a complete wash for a rate cut as of now. And this is where we are standing. This has made yen even weaker. The problem is the yen is already trading at 154 to the dollar. And if it starts going below 157, what starts happening is all the wage increase, which was seen as a positivity, will start becoming wiped out because of the weakening yen. So what is happening in Japan has 2 issues in it. If you look at the Japanese companies, those big companies which are generating most of their revenue outside Japan and bringing their money into Japan, those companies are doing rather well, like in the auto sector and tech sectors, because their revenue is generated outside and is coming into Japan. And the Japanese yen being weak creates more revenue for them. So those companies are up 25% compared to the index. The companies which are relying more on domestic market, like transport, like retail companies, which are focused more on domestic markets, are hurting, and those are the ones which seem to be rather flat. Yes, when tourism opened up in Japan post-COVID, remember they were locked down for a long time and they had long tourist restrictions. Now, when they finally opened, people said, yes, tourists are going to flock to Japan, and there's going to be further inflation, and domestic spending is going to go up. But that hasn't transpired as much as it requires it to be. Yes, tourism is up, spending is up, but it's not to the volume which is required. And if you remove the tourism bump which they got, and you take a further analysis and see, the Japanese public themselves are yet not willing to open their purses and start spending. There seems to be heavy reluctance in the Japanese population even now to spend their money and to bolster consumer confidence and for the domestic market to go up. So transportation is down and retail is down. So this inflation hope which we had in Japan now looks it's teetering. This is compounding investors who have been investing in Japan and looking at the Japanese a rising sun, as they say, and a hope for the rest of the world as an opportunity to make some real huge gains in the Japanese stock market. This is where it's sitting, and this is what happens when you have a weak yen. The weak yen has also further compounded companies which are importing, fabricating, and exporting because the input raw material costs have gone through the roof because of the weak yen. So all the gains which they've been seeing in terms of wages and all this seems to have negated due to the weakening yen. So this is where we stand as far as the Japanese is concerned. And the economic forecast is always like weather forecast. Like we could not predict this was going to be the outcome in the beginning of Jan. And right now, where we stand, this is where it is. Looking forward, if this trend continues, it could be more harmful, if more than being helpful, if the Japanese yen continues to become weaker. So as an investor, it's the time to keep an eye on what's happening with the Japanese yen and the companies which you do decide to invest in Japan, be it directly or be it through the American market, the ADR route. Keep in mind, you're careful in your selection of company, that you do check, like I said, the influence of a weaker end on the company you're looking at, and talk to your financial analysts and advisors before you decide to venture into new and unknown territory yourself. Yes, there are opportunities worldwide, and the Japanese market, this is a short-term thing, is what many feel. But how long will this pain last is difficult to say, because all of this relies on us knowing what the Fed is going to do. And what the Fed is going to do, the Fed really doesn't care about all this. They're more worried about the inflation in US. And right now, the inflation numbers in US don't look so pretty. So where the Fed goes is what everyone is watching. I hope you found this video informative and entertaining, as always, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye.
It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.